Come all you young spacefarers, listen to me. I'll sing you a song of our fish from the sea. And it's windy weather, boys, stormy weather. When the wind blows, then we're all together. Boys, blow ye winds, French word, and blow ye winds blow. Out to the galaxy, steady she goes. Up comes the great dragon in search of our home. Through space to a place.
Stellaris Console Edition is about to receive one of the largest updates the game has ever seen, and we're talking pretty darn huge here. The equivalent of Lem and Herbert are both being added to the Console Edition, which means additional content for both humanoids, for plantoids, and necroids. But in addition to all of that, and what we're going to start off with, is the wonders of Aquatics. Yes, Aquatics will also be dropping in combination with this particular update, and let's dive into the nitty and gritty of what you can expect of Aquatics. We'll go over the LEM stuff in a little bit. First of all, Aquatics has a lot of really cool stuff going on because, of course, it is a species pack. As we go in and we take a look at our appearance, you have a wide range of new portraits that will be dropping with Aquatics, which is pretty darn good. Look at this guy. He's just completely chatted up. That's the stuff that we like to use. Why are you wearing clothes there? You're a dolphin, or swolphin, as we probably should call them. But yeah, new portraits are coming in. But it doesn't mean that there are no new traits. Now, as of Lithoid, traits have become a standard for species packs, and the Aquatics update is not an exception on that particular topic. Aquatic basically means that you will have the ability to have additional habitability on ocean worlds, as well as a reduction in housing, etc., and all of that good stuff. Food, energy, mineral output on ocean worlds also increase. However, if you are not on an ocean world, then you're going to run into some problems. However, there is a special ascension perk called Hydrocentric, which we'll dive into shortly, that will alleviate all of these issues, plus will make all the traits even better. But yeah, in general, it's usually a good idea for the Aquatics to go with a water world or any of the wet category worlds. Frozen and dry are not necessarily the type of planets that you will want to go with if you go with one of these types of planets. Of course, it also comes with a new city appearance. There it is. It's all bulbous and stuff. Not entirely sure what's going on there. And of course, there are new civics, one of which is anglers, which is essentially a replacement for farmers, but only on wet worlds. So, you know, continental worlds, water worlds, that sort of thing. But essentially, farmers will be replaced by anglers and pearl divers, where anglers will generate food as well as trade value, and pearl divers will generate consumer goods as well as trade value, which is really, really nice. It's really strong, and you should probably go and try it out, because having these guys on your worlds basically means that you will have infinite amounts of trade value to deal with, which is really, really nice. There's also a new advisor voice, the aquatic version, and a brand new ship set that comes with this particular update. Here is the Corvette, the Destroyer, the Cruiser, the Battleship, the Titan, of course, which is absolutely gorgeous, if I may add. You will need the Apocalypse expansion to play with this bad boy. The Construction Ship, the Colony Ship, the Science Ship, which is highly animated, and it looks like it's something along coming out of the first Star Trek film in the modern cinematic universe. The Citadel, the Colossus, once again, you will need Apocalypse for this. However, this particular Colossus does have the ability to do something really special if you get the special Ascension perk for it as well. And finally, the Juggernaut, the Beast Among the Stars. Should you build it? I do not know. We'll do a video about that in the future, but it all looks pretty good. Now, you may have noticed that I have been rather apprehensive to talk about the origins that come with this. First of all, there is Here Be Dragons, and if you want to know more about this particular thing and go into depth and get a little bit spoilerific, there'll be a link at the end of the video to go straight forward. There's actually a small playlist ready for you to receive there. But still, what happens is you start off with a space dragon in your solar system, and stuff can happen with it. You can invite it to your planet, get more food, get more resources, and it may help you defend your world, and maybe sooner or later you can do more interesting stuff with it, which is rather cool. Ocean Paradise, which is a relatively unique origin within the game. Essentially what it allows you to do is to generate a size 30 ocean world. Yes, size 30, which is extremely rich because of the food deposits that are on there. And on top of that, you will have a bunch of guaranteed habitable worlds that are frozen worlds. But yeah, there's something really cool about this, which we will dive into. So let's talk about the Ascension perk that comes with this particular expansion, which is none other than Hydrocentric. Hydrocentric is rather interesting because it essentially reduces terraforming costs of any planet into ocean by 25%, which in combination with Aquatics is really, really good because they live really well on those worlds. In addition to that, it allows the construction of ice mining stations on star bases, which enables planetary sea decisions on oceans and flood decisions on habitats. So essentially, well, I'll probably have to illustrate to you this shortly. In addition, any aquatic trait will get a 50% boost as long as they live on a water world, and in addition to that, they will get the negative modifier even heavier if they're living on non-wet worlds. So let's select the Hydrocentric perk. Now overall, this doesn't seem to be doing all that much. We still have that size 30 planet. However, something else has been unlocked for us, and that is the joys of, all the way at the bottom, expand planetary sea. So essentially what we need to do here is we need to have a ice mining station available, and then we can use this 3 times in order to grow our planet. Yes, the size 30 can turn into a size 33 with a massive population. Plus we have the Ocean Paradise modifier, which increases happiness and growth speed as well as resources from pops by 5%. So in this particular case, what would happen is that we would have to build ourselves a special base here on one of these ice asteroids or on some of these frozen worlds, and then apply that to our expand planetary sea modifier. In addition, our worlds that are nearby are automatically a variety of interesting planets, mostly frozen worlds. They are all nearby, and you can mine those for your joy. The Colossus for Aquatics has some very interesting characteristics, and it looks really good, but what we're really after is its special Deluge machine. The Deluge machine basically does the following. It goes to a planet and subsequently turns that planet into a water world, essentially terraforming it for free. As it will place itself above the planet, it will get itself into position and then flood the planet ready for colonization for your species. Of course, you will need the Apocalypse expansion for this, but it will proactively turn any world into a water world very nicely. And of course, you can then use the expand planetary sea modifier to make those planets even bigger. Yes, it's the ultimate terraforming machine, and I'm really glad to see that there are new systems available for you to play around with. We haven't seen terraforming with Colossi before, but now they are here, which is a lot of fun and of course really, really useful to have. And as I mentioned before, the expand planetary sea modifier is available. Essentially what you need to do is you need to make sure that you build yourself a ice mining station on your citadel or smaller space, and you will be able to use the expand planetary sea decision. It's a little bit of a jump through a hoop scenario, but yeah, those are essentially some of the core components that you will need to know in order to play with Aquatics. And this is not very wildly advertised, which I think is a little bit unfortunate. Still though, Aquatics is pretty darn fun. There is a lot of good stuff to hear. This particular setup with the planetary paradise or the ocean paradise is a powerhouse of a trade empire, especially if you combine it with the Angler Civic because of all the trade value that can generate. And it's a real fun way of playing a one planet challenge setup, so go ahead and give it a try. But of course, this update has more to be had. Let's move over to the Lem and Herbert items that are on the menu. Let's take a look at the changes that will be coming to Plantoids, because new traits and new civics will be joining the party if you have this particular expansion. First of all, Plantoids will have 3 new traits. Phototrophic, which will replace the base food cost of upkeep of your population with energy. So essentially it's a 50-50 setup there. They are photosynthetic, therefore they use energy and food. Then there is Radiotrophic, which is essentially the same thing, except if your species lives on a tomb world, they have no energy upkeep. Plus, they will have pop growth speed improvements on tomb worlds and tomb world habitability plus 10. So if you are playing on a origin that involves tomb worlds, I don't know, something along the lines of, let's take a look what we have here. Well, post-apocalyptic, and where you start on a tomb world, and on top of that you can get apocalyptic bombardment, where you can generate tomb worlds wherever you want, and this is probably a very useful thing to have. But yeah, having Radiotrophic is incredibly useful for tomb world species, and it's very, very nice. Finally, there is budding, which works in combination of these two. You cannot have radiotrophic and phototrophic at the same time, but budding you can. And basically what it does is for every single pop that you have working as a slave or better, you will get 0.02 monthly organic pop assembly. So essentially, you're growing pops on your people. There you go. You get more pop growth. Budding is really nice, although it takes some time to get rolling. You need a relatively large population in order to apply this. And on top of that, it only really applies to plantoids. I'm pretty sure it does not apply to species that are in your empire that are not plantoids. So do be aware of that. It can be really powerful, but you need a very, very large population in order to do so. Then let's move over to the civics, because Plantoids comes with some of the best civics in the game now. One of which is one of my all-time favorite, catalytic processing. Catalytic processing essentially does the following. You will never need minerals ever again. Essentially what happens here is that instead of using minerals for things to turn minerals into alloys, because that's the main reason why you have minerals aside for some space related stuff, you use food instead, which means that you can heavily focus on food production and essentially completely ignore minerals. In that sense, you can get all your minerals from space and turn all your planets into food generating establishments. In addition, if you want to get rid of your food production at the same time and use a livestock, it means that you can focus on energy production as well as trade good and alloy production, which is crazy because you have such high production of pretty much everything if you go with this particular approach. Catalytic processing is really, really fun, and I highly recommend for you to play around with it, because just turning pops into into alloys, well, into food and then into alloys is great because it adds so much cool stuff into the mix. Catalytic processing is one of my favorite civics within the game, and you should definitely go ahead and try that out. Then there is Gaia Seeders, which is a very interesting civic. It essentially allows you to turn any planet into a Gaia world by using a special terraforming building. And essentially what you do is you build it, you upgrade it over time, and once you are done, it will turn the planet into a Gaia world. And you can do this to every single one of your planets, which is super powerful and super fun. If you want to have Gaia worlds that are over the shop and you do not have the Baul, for instance, you don't have distant stars, or you do not have world shapers or anything like that, and you want to proactively terraform, Idyllic Bloom is a great way to get more Gaia worlds. It's not necessarily the most powerful civic within the game, but it is a lot of fun. You should probably try this one out as well. But yeah, having catalytic processing as well as Idyllic Bloom plus all the new traits is a lot of fun, and these are some of the additions that are coming to Plantoids. Then there is the changes to Humanoids. Humanoids are getting a lot of new civics that are some of the most powerful within the game, as well as a single origin, which is a lot of fun. But we'll get to that shortly. First of all, there is Masterful Crafters. Masterful Crafters, you can simply not go wrong with this. Artisans will be replaced with Artificers, and they will produce additional consumer goods, as well as additional trade value and engineering research. And for every 3 industrial districts that you build, you will get a single building slot. This is a generalized upgrade to Artisans, and you will never run out of consumer goods ever again. It is great. It is fun. It is super useful, and it's probably one of the better civics within the game, together with catalytic processing, in my opinion. It is a lot of fun, and you essentially will never run out of consumer goods ever again. So there you go. Then there is Pleasure Seekers. Essentially what Pleasure Seekers does, it will add a new lifestyle to the game, where what you will have is the Decadent Lifestyle, which increases happiness, but also consumer goods upkeep, which means it's a nice combo for Masterful Crafters. And also, pop growth from entertainers grows by 1%, which is pretty good. If you have servants within your empire, every single servant will add additional amenities. So if you are a very authoritarian species, then this would probably the way to go for you. A lot of prisoners with jobs in that particular aspect. Thirdly, there is Pompous Purists. Pompous Purists is fascinating because it basically allows you to play the game without ever having to talk to any other empire ever again. They are the ultimate version of a isolationist society, because unless you approach somebody, they will not be able to talk to you. Plus, they have increased trust growth, because if they're finally talking to you, therefore there must be a lot of trust, and you get additional envoys. This is essentially a more powerful version of Diplomatic Corps, which is also pretty good. Plus, you don't have to deal with empires you don't want to talk to. Pompous Purists is fun. I don't necessarily use it all that much in favor for Masterful Crafters or Pleasure Seekers or anything else on this already extremely long list, but it can be a lot of fun to play with. Now, let's talk about the thing that everybody's here for. That is, of course, the Clone Army Origin. This is a fascinating little origin that starts you off with 2 ancient cloning vats that allows you to build a population of clone soldiers. You can only have 5 cloning vats, and that basically means that you can only have 100 pops, because 1 cloning vat will only upkeep 20 soldiers, and if you go over that limit, you will see a reduction in population. There is also a giant event chain attached to this. If you stick around for the end of the video, there will be a playlist available where we go over all of this, including the Clone Army. Plus, Clone Army Admirals will get an additional 25% fire rate, which is insane, as well as a 10% reduced ship upkeep. And on top of that, there is the Clone Soldier trait, which increases governing attraction by 50%. The leader lifespan is very short, only 40 years, but the army damage is plus 50. You cannot genetically modify this species, and you can only grow them through the cloning vats. So you need to be very specific on how to deal with this. Again, there's a video at the end of this video that will tell you all the ins and outs and how to deal with this. But yeah, Clone Soldiers is very gimmicky, very powerful, and very, very fun. Probably one of the funnest origins that are in the game. Plus, you can get incredibly powerful. Finally, when it comes to the changes to some of the species pack, the Necroids will get some changes in their origin. Essentially, you will now be able to play as hive minds here, and in addition, you will no longer have the ability to get crazy strong primitive planets nearby. So essentially, your primitive civilizations that are nearby will not be as big as they used to be. It is a little bit of a nerf, but still, you can have some cool stuff going on here. The big changes here, however, are in the Civic department. Def Cult is having some changes as well. Basically, what is going on here is that the pops will become a lot more valuable, and the pop growth will change as well a little bit. So yeah, essentially we'll have adjusted values for the separate edicts that you can have for the Def Cult. They're a little bit more interesting now. The real moneymaker, however, is with Reanimators. Reanimators are basically the same as they used to be. Well, let's put it this way. Previously, they were called differently. They were called Reanimated Armies before, but now they've been renamed into the Reanimators. Essentially, you can have a Dread encampment pretty early on, and in addition to all of the original bonuses that you could get, Reanimators can bring Leviathans back to life. Organic ones, anyway. So if you are out there in space and you have Leviathans and you are fighting them, you can bring them back from the dead and make them fight on your side. You want a undead space dragon? Yeah, you can get that. You want an undead gigantic Ythanti? Yeah, you can do that too. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with this, and Reanimators can be super powerful if you know what you're doing. You're finding those Leviathans early on and taking them out and then bringing them back from the dead to fight on your side to bolster your fleets even more than before. Reanimators, go ahead and try them out. They are a lot more fun than they used to be now. Aside from all of these changes to the species packs, there is also a plethora of new things that are being added just to this base game itself. For instance, traditions will now be selectable. You will have the ability to select any tradition that you want right off the get-go, which is really useful, and you don't just need to have the standard 7. No, you have a whole bunch more. There's a couple of new ones, including Mercantile, which is pretty darn nice. Mercantile is very much focused on generating a lot of resources early on, which is really useful. Then there is Unyielding, which is a very defensive focused tree, which is the opposite of Supremacy. If you want to buy stations, yeah, then this is probably the way to go. Very much focused on moving stuff around in terms of defensive things. And of course there's Subterfuge, which will give you the ability to be subterfugey. Yeah. Find yourself a way through the galaxy and be all sneaky and stuff. These ones that are over here are not the versions that are going to be going into the console version, but still feel free to go and take a look at them once they come out, because the version that console is getting is not as good as the PC version right now, but I'm sure those changes will come in the future. In addition, all the traditions have had a major overhaul in terms of their bonuses as well as their layout. As for instance, Unyielding now has the Bulwark of Harmony, whereas previously that was in the Harmony category, whereas Harmonious Directives has replaced Bulwark of Harmony, which is a little bit unfortunate, of course, but you will just have to get used to that. There's a lot of changes to traditions, as I mentioned, but also a ton of different changes as well. There is going to be changes to civics. There is going to be changes to a lot of events. There are changes pretty much everywhere. The Shattered Ring origin will be reworked to be a little bit more interesting. We have changes to Void Dwellers, so they no longer have 2 traits depending on where they go. There is 200 new star names being added, 2 new archaeology sites added to the base game, 13 new terraforming events, so if you're terraforming a planet to something new, you will now have events that will randomly pop up. So this planet, for instance, you terraform it, all of a sudden you could say, hey, I would like some initial generator districts, or I would like to have some industrial districts there. That's really nice. New anomalies of located on asteroids. So if you're going around in space and you're surveying an asteroid, yeah, there's new events there. New events on gas worlds as well. This is a frozen world, but you get the general idea. There is new ones there too. New anomalies on uninhabitable worlds that can be all over the shop. New options to older anomalies to take into account all the new changes to civics and edicts and everything. You can now queue up construction of starbase buildings that can essentially be built anywhere. So let's say that you have a starbase upgrade and you already have a couple of things queued out, scheduled for after that. You can already queue those up. Ecumenopolae can now be constructed by rogue servitors. Subversive cults, i.e. the criminal cults, do no longer have access to the Temple of Prosperity, but instead get a special shrine building. There is a new updated ship browser. You can look through everything at the start of the game. Civics have been rebalanced. There is so many things here. And when I said at the start of the video that this is one of the largest updates that Console Edition has ever seen, I was not kidding. This is going to be an amazing update, and I highly recommend for you to go and check it out. If you want to know more about this update as well as Aquatics, there is a playlist on your screen right now. Go and check it out. Just let it run in the background so you can learn about what's going on. Clone armies, the joys of Aquatics, everything that is involved there. So you can have a deeper dive before the 25th when it arrives. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, eat shudder.